Plot on a yacht. Toto Wolff and Max Verstappen back together on Toto Wolff's yacht this week. What about George Russell? Oh yeah, the plot thickens. And we have a Daniel Ricciardo update regarding his hospitalisation. This is F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and if you're an F1 fan, you're in the right place. Hit the subscribe button and the bell button now. Join the community and get involved. Let's get into it. So, lots has been going on in this summer break. Toto Wolff and Max Verstappen have been bromancing again on Toto's yacht this week during this summer break in the F1 calendar. Now, to understand what could be going on, we need to understand what's already gone on. Toto has been flirting with Max in full view of his current driver lineup, George and Kimi, both of which don't have driver contracts in place for 2026 yet. Now, Max has a Red Bull contract until 2028, but with some unique clauses that could allow Max to leave early, one of which could have happened this year before this summer break. So if Max was fourth or lower in the Drivers' Championship, the team's non-performance clause comes into play and he could have got out of his contract. Well, unfortunately for Toto and maybe Max, Max is third at this time, and that means he will be racing the rest of this season and the 2026 season for Red Bull. But let's move it forward, because it's not just that. The plot thickens. We've got to bring in Mr. George Russell. And whilst all this is going on, George is wondering, what about my contract? You might have seen it in the news. It's like a guy watching their fiance try and marry a better option just before they walk down the aisle with them, because Max is now unavailable because he's currently third in the Drivers' Championship. So that non-performance clause by the team is now null and void. Toto has now offered George a contract, but George publicly is saying, you know what, thanks for that contract. I'm not rushing it. I need to dot the I's and cross the T's, and it won't be done over this summer break, this F1 season. Now, it's rumoured to be 30 million per year, but here's the sticking point. How long is that contract offer for? Hello to everyone in the chat. Hey, Yvonne. Hey, Gemma. Nice to have you with us. I'm coming to that, Yvonne. Coming to that. So George has been very, very good this year in a pretty bad Mercedes car that only works, well, in cool, dry conditions. So not too hot, not too cold, but cool. It's like the Goldilocks of F1 cars. And because of that, he did win in Canada, a nice, cool, dry race. And he maximised the points for Mercedes, really, every time he's been out in the car this year. So you could say he's actually overperformed where that car should be. But let's get back to Max. So when we go back to what's happening with Mr. Verstappen, regardless of being third and being stuck in his contract, he is looking for a way out. Because Red Bull have lost Adrian Newey to Aston Martin, the greatest car designer in the world ever, won over, I think it's 12 or 13 constructors titles in his career, and on 12 or 13 drivers titles, like unbelievable. The other thing is Red Bull have what can only be described as an experimental new engine developed by Red Bull and Ford together for 2026. But there's been some rumours about that engine. Now, my man on the ground, Tubby George, has told us that the 2026 engine by Red Bull and Ford currently is not great. They do have time to make it better, but right now, apparently it's not where they want it to be. And remember the last time F1 had a major engine rule change, which was 2014 when the sport decided no more gloriously naturally aspirated V8s, but they're going to go with turbocharged 1.6 V6s. That's the future. But at that major update and change in Formula One history, Mercedes dominated for 7 straight years. And guess what? The word on the street about Mercedes engines is that the 2026 one is good, which is good news for Mercedes, McLaren, Alpine and Williams, but it's not so good for Max and Red Bull. So back to the boat. Back to the boat. So this summer break, Toto Wolff and Max Verstappen, as you can see on the thumbnail, which is, I know it's a bit blurry, but this is a picture that came out a couple of weeks ago, so a couple of days ago, where they're all cozying up on Max Verstappen and Toto Wolff are on Toto's yacht. But what could they be talking about? Well, it's all about 2027, which also ties in George Russell's contract, which still isn't agreed for 2026. So as the plot thickens, look, it all comes down to this. Toto wants Max in the Mercedes and he wants him as quick as possible. But he has got such a great driver in George Russell and he definitely needs him for 2026. But does he need him for 2027? And would George Russell sign a contract which doesn't cover him for 2027? So when you wrap all this up, if the rumours are true, Max knows what's going on with the development of that 2026 engine, the one they're developing with Ford. He's got all the inside. He knows what's going on with that 2026 car. Even though his contract's to 2028, he might be thinking, I'm getting out of this Red Bull contract in 2026, and I want to be nailed on for a drive with a good car in 2027. So this then brings us to the George Russell conundrum. George Russell is negotiating with Toto Wolff right now about his contract for 2026. Now, if you're George Russell, who's done a sterling job this year on maximising the amount of points that Mercedes could possibly get, you're going to want a pretty decent contract, not just 1 year's good salary, but you want to be secure for the next 2, maybe 3 years. If you look at Charles Leclerc, he signed up with Ferrari till 2029. So if you're George Russell, you're thinking, why am I not number one driver? You know that your fiance / team boss wants Max Verstappen, but you don't want to just give Mercedes 1 year. And if you are going to give Mercedes just 1 year, well, then that fee had better be ridiculous. You know, they're talking about 30 million, but Russell could say, all right, if you want a 1 year deal, I want 50 million. But then what happens if they give George Russell a 1 year deal? Max Verstappen's Mercedes is better than expected. Max Verstappen's Red Bull is better than expected, and the engine isn't as bad as what people are saying, and he does well, and the non-performance clauses don't come into play, so he still can't get out of his Red Bull contract. Mercedes then, depending on, I think they're going to be competitive, but let's say they're not. George Russell's got other options, because you also got Aston Martin, who in 2027 will be retiring Fernando Alonso. The Adrian Newey car will be its second year in. That's a very attractive prospect for Max Verstappen, if he's available, and George Russell, because George Russell would be a great fit for Aston Martin. So there's a crazy game going on right now with Toto Wolff. He is literally courting Max Verstappen, telling George Russell, if I could get Max, I wouldn't take you. And you're trying to negotiate a deal for 2026 / 2027. And Toto's saying, well, if I can get Max for 2027, I don't want you, because you can't have Max and George in the same team, can you? Let me know what you think. I'm going to just go to the chat. So let me catch some messages. Yeah, Yvonne, couldn't agree more. Mercedes really are going to mess up this negotiation, because who would you, if you can't get Max Verstappen, here's my question, Gemma and Yvonne in the chat. What other driver would you have in that Mercedes seat number 1? Who would be a better driver than George, but not as good as Max? What do you think? Gemma's asked me to do a Toto Wolff impression. Nobody wants to hear my "get in the car, George" Toto Wolff impression. It just isn't solid. But tell me, who do you think would be an alternative to George that isn't Max? Now, I've got some ideas. I'm going to throw a couple out there. Gasly's contract's going to be running out at the end of 2026 for Alpine. He's had a sterling season. Esteban Ocon, his contract will be up at the end with his Haas contract at the end of 2026. Lando or Oscar, you're not going to get Lando or Oscar, Yvonne, because they're on long contracts. I think Lando's 2028. I think Oscar's 2028. So Lando and Oscar are absolutely nailed on in those McLaren seats for the next 2-3 years minimum. Unless they fall out, because I can see that happening. I can definitely see the Lando Oscar. What am I doing? I've not even had a beer. I can definitely see Lando and Oscar at some point. This great relationship they have and this friendly rivalry at McLaren, at some point they are going to bang heads. At some point they're both going to think they're the best driver, and there's something's going to happen. But they will be at McLaren, barring any major upsets, for the next 3 years minimum, I'd say. Oh, Gemma's saying it's like a prenup. I don't think Lando and Oscar have signed a prenup, but maybe that's a new thing. Maybe they should. Battle of the egos from Gemma. Yeah. Charles, Yvonne, let me tell you about Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc's contract at Ferrari is to 2029. It's the longest contract on the grid, which might make you realise when Lewis Hamilton talks about what's going on at Ferrari, even though he's been brought in as their big signing, Charles Leclerc still is the future of Ferrari. They still believe in him. Well, probably more than Lewis Hamilton, to be fair. And they want Charles Leclerc to be world champion. He's the guy they've invested in. And he's on $35 million a year. And he's nailed on his contract to 2029. They secured him that long. That's crazy. But that's what they've done. So it won't be Charles Leclerc. So it comes back to what's going on the boat. And here's what I think. They are scheming and plotting. Toto Wolff and Max Verstappen are scheming and plotting for 2027. And depending on that scheme and plot and plan is going to be how George Russell's negotiation goes right now. Because George, I think, has said he would drive with anyone. He would drive with Max. But that's the other option. They could give George a 2-year deal on 30 million per year, and George could sign that. What they could do is Kimi Antonelli's contract, which I think they should do anyway. If they are going to keep him next year, they should give him a 1-year extension. So that means there is a second seat available at Mercedes. If Max becomes available, they can keep George for 2027. He's secured. They could move Kimi Antonelli on. And if they give him a longer contract, they could even loan him to a team like, if you think about the teams that are running the Mercedes powertrain, you got Alpine, Williams, and McLaren. So could a seat open up at Alpine or Williams? Yes. Could Kimi Antonelli be moved sideways if he has, well, it's not really sideways, I'd say to a lower team. Should that be necessary if he doesn't quite perform up to scratch? Well, even if he performs well, Max Verstappen's still going to get a seat. So it could be a Kimi Antonelli move. But all of this friendly, everyone's just hanging out on Toto's yacht. Oh, by the way, something else about that Toto's yacht holiday over the last few days. Apparently, I haven't seen a picture, so I can't confirm it, but apparently Charles Leclerc was on the boat as well. What the hell was he doing there? Because he's nailed on. He's nailed on until 2029. Him, Max and Toto Wolff having a little menage a trois, eating food. I have no idea, but what a weird mix. And no Mercedes driver there at all. No George Russell, no Kimi Antonelli, just Toto Wolff, Charles Leclerc, and Max Verstappen all hanging out. That's a weird mix, isn't it, in the summer break? I mean, I don't know. That's some crazy stuff. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're just, jet skiing, water skiing, having a great time, having the chef make them loads of food, doing some swimming, bromancing. But no, it's plotting and scheming. And the plotting and scheming is between Toto and Max. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Yvonne saying, yeah, you're saying Charles was being bored as everyone else? Possibly. Boats and hose, Gemma. Boats and hose? That's a Will Ferrell reference from Brothers or something. What is it? Step Brothers. What a movie. Hilarious. So that's what's going on right now. So there really is some scheming going on. There really is some plotting going on. And it's 100% affecting the George Russell contract. But if I'm George Russell, when I see all this going on, I'm going to say, because the big thing that the ace up George's sleeve is Mercedes need him for 2026. There isn't anyone available out. There's no one else available that's going to be better than him. So they need a lead driver. So that's probably why George Russell is saying, I'm not rushing with this contract. He's probably thinking, well, this is my best chance to get the maximum money. And he deserves big money because George Russell has been a consistent performer. He's maximised the points that Mercedes could really get this season. He's won a race in a car that maybe you could argue probably wasn't likely to win a race this year. The ground effect car, Mercedes car, has been awful the entire time. Yet Toto Wolff is making big noises about the 2026 car. He is convinced that because they're going to a 50-50 power ratio between the ICU, the internal combustion engine, the internal combustion engine, and the hybrid system and the electrification. He seems very confident with their power unit, and he can understand why, because Mercedes as a car manufacturer are at the cutting edge of hybrid power, aren't they? The resources behind Mercedes is bigger than Ferrari, is bigger than is it bigger than Honda? Possibly, but their know-how and expertise, I'd say Mercedes are just tip top when it comes to engines, and they proved it in 2014. The major engine regulation change, they dominated, and it was because of the horsepower, and it was because of their engines. They dominated for 7 years. 7 years, 7 world championships. I mean, but going back to Max, where if you look at the mess Red Bull are in, they've lost the best car designer that's ever lived in Formula One history in Adrian Newey. They've lost Christian Horner, or they sacked Christian Horner, even though him and Max probably fell out, or was it more Max's dad, Jos Verstappen, who was really the catalyst in that? But Horner, whatever you think of him as a divisive character, he pushed and pushed and pushed, and he got the best out of that team. And you could also say that he always prioritised Max Verstappen. Pierre Gasly said that his short run of 2 races in the Red Bull car, all he did was test out the setups for Max Verstappen. Yuki Tsunoda, the same. That's why his car's not been the same, because they use the second Red Bull car. The reason why the second Red Bull car is so bad is they use it as extra testing and sacrifice the second driver to get data to set up Max's car. So Christian Horner did that for Max. So you've removed all these elements. Plus the fact you've got this question mark over the power unit in Red Bull, where Red Bull, who have never manufactured an engine before, have decided to set up Red Bull Technologies to become an engine manufacturer in a partnership with Ford. We just do not know how that's going to pan out. I mean, how is that going to pan out? Red Bull, they've gone from being great aerodynamics, building a good chassis, building a good car, and now they're going to build a power unit with Ford. When they're up against Ferrari, Mercedes, Honda. I mean, that's ambitious. And if you're Max Verstappen, who is arguably the greatest driver in the world right now, and he's got data on the engine, he's going, oh, this engine isn't looking great for 2026. So he's already thinking in 2026, my team non-performance clauses will kick in, which mean I will be able to accept a new drive for 2027. So what do you think he's talking to Toto Wolff about on the freaking yacht this week? It's all about 2027. He's already anticipating, in my opinion, that Red Bull car is going to be a bag of spanners. He's seen the data, and that's what I think's gone on. I think Max Verstappen knows that Red Bull car, that 2026 car, is not going to be great. No Adrian Newey, no Christian Horner, no an engine manufacturer. They're developing a brand new engine with Ford and the Red Bull technologies. Like, nobody knows. There's too many question marks. And he's probably thinking, oh my God. So yeah, he's talking about 2027. Toto wants him in a car in 2027. He knows Mercedes are going to build a solid engine. And that's what's going on. And that's what's affecting George Russell's contract right now. I'm going to go to the chat. Yvonne, Fernando will decide himself when he retires, unlike Lewis. Do you know what, Yvonne? I think you're right. But did you see the clues, Yvonne? Like, Fernando is 44, which, as a Formula One driver, is your body is going to respond in a certain way, and it's going to be different to a guy who's 25 or 30. He's got a big deal at Aston Martin, but it does run out at the end of next year. But guess what? First year of an Adrian Newey car, he's gonna be, Fernando Alonso is worth his 20 million a year next year. But going into 2027, I think even Fernando Alonso himself he'll be 45, 46, going on 46. He'll say himself, that's the end of it. Yeah, he will be saying himself, thank you very much. Thank you for the 2, maybe 3 world championships. The Aston Martin is going to be very, very good next year. But that'll be the end of it. So Lance Stroll will still be there. Fernando's going to need to be replaced. Now, here's the thing. If George Russell only signs a 1-year deal on big money because he understands that the Max Verstappen under the table deal that they're doing on the yacht right now with Toto, he'd be perfect for the Aston Martin drive. Why would George Russell not want to go to Aston Martin for 2027 with Adrian Newey and all the money behind that team and that car? Plus, the Honda power plant's going to be strong, and they're only making them for Aston Martin. So why would George Russell not be a perfect fit for Aston Martin? Everyone keeps saying about, Max Verstappen, 2027 Aston Martin. Because if they think that team up again with Adrian Newey would be powerful, well, yeah, it would be powerful. But the power in that arrangement, I believe, still sits with Adrian Newey. Because you got to remember, Adrian Newey's built cars for lesser drivers than Max Verstappen and has won world championships. So you're telling me the Adrian Newey car, if it's really a good Adrian Newey car, George Russell couldn't be world champion? Yeah, he could. He's shown it this year, because what George Russell has done consistently is score points in a car that's not that great. He's won a race in a car that really should be winning races. But he has consistently outshone his teammate, Kimi Antonelli, and he's consistently maximised the car. And if he did that in an Adrian Newey car, that's a world championship. That is a world championship. Yvonne says, what's that, Gemma? Also, they'll do it with his son there. Yeah, the thing is, you talk about Aston Martin, Gemma. What they'll do, so Lawrence Stroll's son, Lance Stroll, at Aston Martin will still be there in 2027, for sure. But Fernando, I think by his own admission, he is not, I think he'll choose himself not to be there in 2027. That's what I think. And I think everyone keeps talking about Max Verstappen in the Aston Martin. I think it's more likely to be, the way it looks right now in the negotiations, it looks more likely to be a George Russell in that car. A Brit in the Aston Martin brand. The James Bond of George. I mean, let's face it, George Russell, he can pull off that James Bond thing really well. It'd be great for the brand. I actually think it'd be better for the brand than Max Verstappen. But I also think if Newey builds a solid car, he's going to George Russell can win the world championship. So all of this plotting and scheming that's going on Toto's yacht could play into the great storyline for F1 and a great storyline for George Russell, because he could sign a 1-year deal, big money, leave his options open for 27, see what happens with with Max and Mercedes, and take it from there. That's what I think. That's what I believe. I know a lot can happen in Formula One in 1 year. And you're right, Yvonne. Newey really is the controller of Aston Martin for 2026. There's no doubt about it. It's his car. It's his team as an owner of the team as well, the shareholder. Him and Lawrence will be making those decisions. 100%. Like the decision will be made at the top. I mean, it's just like Toto though. Toto is team principal, but he owns 30% of Mercedes Racing. Just by the way, I did promise you an update on Daniel Ricciardo. So Daniel Ricciardo had a dirt bike accident in Queensland, Daintree National Forest, this week. Now, we're told it's a minor injury because he suffered a minor collarbone injury. It's funny because he wasn't really, I don't think he was allowed to ride his dirt bikes when he was racing in Formula 1, because he has been in the press recently saying he doesn't want to drive. His F1 days are over. And you know, it's a shame, actually, because he was one of my favourite drivers on the grid. And do you know what? He's only 36. He's 8 years younger than Fernando Alonso. So really, it's not an age thing. He just feels like he's not able to deliver. And, you know, Helmut Marko said the same thing. He said the reason why they ejected Ricciardo from Racing Bulls is he just didn't have it anymore. But anyway, Daniel Ricciardo, one of my favourite drivers, but he's only 36. And the thing about Cadillac coming to the grid is apparently Cadillac were interested in bringing him back because of his personality, because he used to be quick, and because he brings such an energy that is just infectious in the paddock. But yeah, then Graham Loden basically turned around and said, that's not happening. As soon as a driver says, I'm not thinking about F1 anymore, I don't think I've got what it takes. As soon as a driver says that, there's no team in the world that's going to call that driver, because confidence is everything for a Formula One driver. And Daniel Ricciardo, he's not coming back to F1. Not as a driver, in my opinion. It's a shame though. But yeah, it is you're absolutely right. It's absolutely a mental thing, Yvonne. Driving, because you're talking about hundredths, not even tenths of a second. You're talking about 1/100ths of a second. Any element of self-doubt as a driver, that tiny hesitation of thought, and it's in the subconscious, can create a 100th of a delay in your action, in your braking. And once that's gone, forget it. Forget it. And I don't know whether people ever get it back. Maybe they do in the movies. But in real terms, I think once that's gone, that killer instinct, that arrogance, belief, whatever you want to call it, like most drivers are pretty arrogant, but that self-belief is important. Which brings me back to the yacht and Toto Wolff. George Russell's watching his boss basically say, Max Verstappen's better than you. If I'm George Russell, I'm like, no, he's not. Because if I'm a driver on that grid, I have to believe I'm as good or better than Max Verstappen. I have to believe that. Otherwise, what the hell am I doing? I'm competing for second. How can any professional athlete, sports person, driver think they're competing for second? Who the hell wants to do that? It's the win or nothing. So when George Russell sees all this, if I'm him, I'm thinking, I'm better than Max. I just need the right package, the right car, the right engine, the right package. I'm smoother than Max. I'm better than Max. And I have to believe that. And I also have to think that I can improve as a driver. Because if somebody's getting better results, I have to think it's my fault. I can't think that that person's just better than me. I have to think that I'm not driving optimally. That's what I have to think. I can't think that that person is just blanketly better than me. No driver can think like that. You have to believe you're the best on the grid. you just have to unlock it. Or maybe there's something you're not doing, you can improve, but it's in there. You are the best. You just need to unlock something, that you need to improve something, and with the right amount of work, you will show the world that you're the best. But when your boss is courting Max Verstappen on his boat, if anything, it should spur you on. But he definitely needs to make Mercedes pay, though, for this contract. Every time I would see if I'm in a position that George is in, and they need me to drive for them in 2026, every time I see my boss courting my future replacement, my price is going up for next year. What, 30 million? No, make it 60 million. You know? Because who wants to be number 2? I'll be number 1 next year. And if you don't think I'm number 1 the year after, so be it. But I'm going to be number 1 next year, and you're going to pay me like I'm number 1 next year. Go and win a world championship. And if the Mercedes car's good, I'll win a world championship. And then we'll renegotiate. Because George is going to get offers. There's no way. George has proven himself to be such a great driver. Hey, James, nice to see you in the chat. Oh, Gemma says, I missed a Will Ferrell reference. Did I? Which one? It scrolls by so quickly. Boats and hose. Yeah. I've already said boats and hose. Stop getting me to say boats and hose on YouTube. I might get cancelled for that. James, I'm on a boat something. I'm on a Mojo boat. Oh my gosh. Boats and hose. That's what they're up to. Yeah, so that's my point. So this all plays into this really crazy story that we're going to see unfold between now and the end of the season. And it comes to, we'll know once George Russell has agreed a deal and those deals get announced, it's going to tell us everything. And here's the thing we need to look out for. If George Russell signs a 2-year deal and Kimi Antonelli signs a 1-year deal, leaving that space for the second seat at Mercedes to be available in 2027, then that tells us a lot. That tells us that we could see George and Max together in 2027. If we see a 1-year deal from George Russell and a 1-year deal from Kimi, it tells us they're lining up Max for 2027. And then it's performance related. Is Kimi going to perform well enough to get that second seat? Is George going to have a negotiation to drive alongside Max? Does Toto need him at that point if he's already done a gentleman's agreement with Max Verstappen? But for them to even be talking about it at this stage on Toto's boat in this midway point of the 2025 season and the summer break, it tells me that Max knows that the 2026 Red Bull is not going to be strong, and the non-performance clauses are probably going to come into effect, which will allow him to exit Red Bull and enter Mercedes. Well, yeah, that's what it tells me. So the way all this is playing out, it's fascinating. Get in the chat. Let me know what you think. Yeah, what are you talking? They're still talking about boats. Get in the car, George. Toto Wolff. Yeah, so that's the thing. So that's what's going on. It's a fascinating story that will develop. And Toto is still saying, I anticipate the drivers in 2026 to be George and Kimi. They will be George and Kimi. And he's only saying that now because Max is not going to be available. There's no way out. So they'll be talking about all sorts. I think there's also an option to buy Max out of his contract. Because you've got to remember, Max's contract as it stands is till the end of 2028, which is, in Formula One terms, a lifetime away. And if you're Max Verstappen and you're on a brand new platform, the Red Bull's no good, the power plant's no good, you've got a new car designer that isn't Adrian Newey, and the car's bad, he don't want to get locked into that crap car for 3 years, does he, when he sees Mercedes doing better, Ferrari doing better, and even worse, he sees his Aston Martin, Adrian Newey, who's taken, shares at Aston Martin, designing their car on a brand new platform, which you need to go and look at my Adrian Newey video, by the way, because I have leaked some stuff about Adrian Newey he has found some loopholes in the 2026 regulations, and his car is going to be brilliant. So please go and watch that video at some point. You haven't already seen it. I think it's called Adrian Newey, MVP of F1. Brilliant, really good. Lots of you liked it. So go and check that out if you haven't seen it. But he's going to see his old guy, Adrian Newey, design an amazing car. So yeah, all of that stuff comes into the narrative. Because the one thing I think we can all agree on, Max Verstappen on Toto Wolff's yacht in this summer break, they're not fishing. They're not just hanging out as friends. That just is not true. That doesn't happen. Do you not think Max has got his own mates that he can go jet skiing with? It's just not true. Max has got his own family, his own friends. He's not just gone to go, okay, Toto, let's hang out. They are talking business. They are talking deals, and they are plotting together. They want the world to believe, no, we just happen to be. Our boats are in the same area. It's nonsense. Because for your boats to be in the same area, by the way, that's not a coincidence. They have captains and staff on these boats. They arrange for their boats to be at a certain place when they need them to be there. Their boats could have been in Mallorca. They could have been in Monaco. They could have been in the Caribbean, wherever. And they arrange for those boats to travel a long time before they travel. It's all arranged. There's no coincidences. Do not believe it. There's a plot, and it's all about 2027. And those conversations are going to directly influence George Russell's contract, which is due to be signed and agreed in the next coming days/weeks. And George now holds the cards. It's a crazy situation. Yet nobody wants to delve into it because it is a little bit tabloidy. You know, you see a picture of Max Verstappen with his shirt off on Toto's Wolff, and there's Toto. Max, get on the jet ski, Max. Because that's how he talks when he's on his holiday, like a pirate. Have a go on the jet ski, Max. Go faster. By the way, come and drive for us in 2027. Oh my God, my Toto Wolff impression's getting worse. It's just getting worse. But yeah, that's what's going on. And it's happening right in front of us. And here's the other thing. What's Helmut Marko saying about Max Verstappen being on that yacht? Nothing. All Helmut Marko has said about the Mercedes rumours is that people like to fuel these rumours, meaning Toto Wolff, and it's all nonsense. Max isn't going anywhere. All right, Helmut. I don't see him on your boat. I don't see him shirtless going on your jet skis, Helmut Marko, a.k.a. the Emperor from the Star Wars movies. You know what I mean? Like, he's not doing that, is he? He's on Toto Wolff's yacht, hanging out with him. That's what's going on. So, Helmut, take your helmet off, get your brain in gear. Max is courting other people. He's had enough of you lot. He is not convinced that you're going to be able to deliver him a car. And why would he be? You've lost your designer, Adrian Newey. You're building an experimental powertrain, basically, with Red Bull, who have never built an engine before, with Ford. We don't... And like I said, my man on the ground, Tubby George, has basically said... And it's out there, that the engine is not looking great. They have got time to make it better, but right now... it doesn't look good. I guarantee right now, if you compared the Mercedes 2026 power plant, the Ferrari 2026 power plant, and the and the Red Bull/Ford powertrain, Mercedes would be number one as it stands today. Maybe Mercedes and Ferraris will be pretty similar, but that Ford Red Bull powertrain ain't going to be there yet. They might improve it, but I don't think it's going to be there yet, and I think he knows it. And because of the new regulations and the way they have made the engines simpler, that's what they've done. They've made the engines less expensive and simpler to allow, to hopefully to balance out to evenize, is that even a word? To balance out the grid. They think that people should be able to create powertrains that'll be similar in performance because they've made them less complicated. But how many engines have Red Bull Technologies made? None. They were formed in 2024 purposefully for the building of the new engines with Ford. So we just don't know what that's like. So that's what I think's going on. Max has wised up. He's seen the writing on the wall. He ain't confident, but what he is confident in is he's going to be able to get out of his Red Bull contract and he'll drive for Mercedes in 2027. And that's what they're plotting about. That's what they're talking about. And that's why George Russell doesn't have his contract yet. And that's it. That is what's going on that yacht. So, yeah, crazy times. Oh, and by the way, I will take all this back if you can show me a picture of Max Verstappen chilling out with Helmut Marko on his boat in this summer break. Good luck finding that one. Okay, I see loads of action going on in the chat. What is going on in my chat? People are talking about Earl Grey. Right, I'm drinking if anyone's interested. I know people love an Earl Grey sometimes on a Sunday night. I'm having a little coffee. Instant. It's not even cafetiere. And it's semi-cold because I've been going on for so long. And yeah, Gemma's talking about Helmut Marko. She's calling him a Bond villain. Helmut Marko's not a Bond villain. He reminds me of the Emperor from Star Wars. Emperor, what is it? Senator Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine. That's just what I'm saying. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying he looks a little bit, he reminds me of him. That's all. I did a great dark side of Red Bull video on him. If you've not seen that, make sure you check it out. It's in recent videos. It's only a short one. Go and have a watch of it. And it might make sense why I call him the Emperor from Star Wars. James Allen says, I've just lost the respect of any Italian fans by saying instant coffee. You're right, you know. You're right. It's not on, is it? It's not on to be doing a show talking about, you know, Formula One and Italian sports cars, Ferrari, and I'm drinking instant coffee. It's true. Don't go anywhere. I promise you next time I'll have a nice espresso. How you're supposed to drink it. But yeah, that's the tea. That's what those guys have been plotting on Toto's yacht. And I will update you as things unfold. But here's the things to watch out for before I go. Remember this. How long is Kimi Antonelli's contract going to be when he agrees it? Is it going to be 1 year? How long is George Russell's contract going to be? Is it going to be for 1 year? And if it's for 2 years, is Kimi's for 1 year? And if that's the case, however you cut it, it's because they are freeing that seat up for Max for 2027. And it's because Max thinks the Red Bull is going to be, guess what? That's right, a bag of spanners. You heard it here first. So yeah, that's basically everything that's been going on. And that Red Bull is going to be a bag of spanners. I'm sure of it. Lost Adrian Newey, experimental engine with Red Bull Technologies and Ford. I just don't believe it's going to be good. And I think Max knows it. Mercedes are going to come out strong. Ferrari's going to come out strong. Aston Martin's probably going to be the strongest of them all, if I'm on, in the first year of this new era of cars and these new powertrains. I think Aston Martin, it all depends on Honda's, I've said this before, aerodynamically, and the best car is going to be Aston Martin's. It depends on the powertrain. If Honda can deliver them a power unit, which they can, which they are capable of, a solid power unit, Aston Martin's going to be the car. That's my view. And yes, James, bag of spanners is the official F1 technical term for a lemon of a car. And that Red Bull, baby, I believe, is going to be a bag of spanners. It's been a fun show tonight. It's been really good. Sunday nights, we should make Sunday night the fun night, where whatever we're talking about, get the chat going, get yourself a glass of wine, and you can bring loads of stuff into the chat, and we can discuss things. 100%. Yeah, Sunday night is going to be the fun show, I've decided. So don't be a fun sponge and get involved every Sunday night, 8 o'clock. I know I was late tonight. I had a slight technical issue. But 8 o'clock on a Monday night is going to be the fun show. That's it. I'm losing my voice. It's been really good fun tonight. Thank you so much for watching F1 Grandstand. Please like, comment, join the community, subscribe and hit the bell so you can keep up to date. It makes a massive difference to the success of the channel. I am so grateful to all of you for getting involved in the chat. That's Gemma, that's Yvonne and James and everyone else. Thank you so much. I will be back tomorrow with more F1 news at 8 o'clock. Thanks again. See you then. Ta-ta.